How important is a name? She names the sky her own. Good morning and welcome to Lost for Words. I am Sarah Woods. I'm actually going to read a story from Maya Angelou's book. It's chapter 16, and I'm just going to share it with you. I'm just going to read it. And I want you to imagine what you would do if you were working basically as a maid, serving. So imagine you are whatever color you are, and that you're working for someone who is richer, who is dominant in your culture, and somebody who used to enslave your colored people. I don't know if you can imagine that, trying to crawl into Maya Angelou's world. She's an African-American girl, and here she is at 10 years old working as basically a maid for this richer white woman. And I want you to watch what happens with her experience with her name. And I'm very curious how you would feel if someone who was the color of a people that had enslaved you and that you were serving, working for as a maid, tried to change your name. How you would feel about that. Okay. All right, here we go. This is chapter 16. Recently, a white woman from Texas who would quickly describe herself as a liberal asked me about my hometown. When I told her that in stamps, my grandmother had owned the only Negro general merchandise store since the turn of the century, she exclaimed, "Oh, why, you debutante." Ridiculous and even ludicrous. But Negro girls in small southern towns, whether poverty-stricken or just munching along on a few of life's necessities, were given as extensive and irrelevant preparations for adulthood as rich white girls shown in magazines. Admittedly, the training was not the same. While white girls learned to waltz and sit gracefully with a teacup balanced on their knees, we were lagging behind, learning the mid-Victorian values with very little money to indulge them. We were required to embroider, and I had trunkfuls of colorful dish towels, pillowcases, runners, and handkerchiefs to my credit. I mastered the art of crocheting and tatting, and there was a lifetime supply of dainty doilies that would never be used in sashayed dresser drawers. It went without saying that all girls could iron and wash, but the finer touches around the home, like setting a table with real silver, baking roast, and cooking vegetables without meat, had to be learned elsewhere, usually at the source of those habits. During my 10th year, a white woman's kitchen became my finishing school. Mrs. Viola Cullinan was a plump woman who lived in a 3-bedroom house somewhere behind the post office. She was singularly attractive until she smiled, and then the lines around her eyes and mouth, which made her look perpetually dirty, disappeared, and her face looked like the mask of an impish elf. She usually rested her smile until late afternoon when her women friends dropped in and Miss Glory, the cook, served them cold drinks on the closed-in porch. The exactness of her house was inhuman. This glass went here and only here. That cup had its place, and it was an act of impudent rebellion to place it anywhere else. At 12 o'clock, the table was set. At 12:15, Mrs. Cullinan sat down to dinner, whether her husband had arrived or not. At 12:16, Miss Glory brought out the food. It took me a week to learn the difference between a salad plate, a bread plate, and a dessert plate. Mrs. Cullinan kept up the tradition of her wealthy parents. She was from Virginia. Miss Glory, who was a descendant of slaves that had worked for the Cullinans, told me her history. She had married beneath her, according to Miss Glory. Her husband's family hadn't had their money very long, and what they had didn't amount to much. As ugly as she was, I thought privately, She was lucky to get a husband above or beneath her station. She's terrible. But Miss Glory wouldn't let me say a thing against her mistress. She was very patient with me, however, over the housework. She explained the dishware, silverware, and servants' bells. The large round bowl in which soup was served wasn't a soup bowl, it was a tureen. There were goblets, sherbet glasses, ice cream glasses, wine glasses, green glass coffee cups with matching saucers, and water glasses. I had a glass to drink from, and it sat with Miss Glory's on a separate shelf from the others. Soup spoons, gravy boat, butter knives, salad forks, carving platter were additions to my vocabulary, and in fact almost represented a new language. I was fascinated with the novelty, with the fluttering Miss Cullinan and her Alice in Wonderland house. Her husband remains in my memory undefined. I lumped him with all the other white men that I had ever seen and tried not to see. On our way home one evening, Miss Glory told me that Miss Cullinan couldn't have children. She said that she was too delicate boned. It was hard to imagine bones at all under those layers of fat. Miss Glory went on to say that the doctor had taken out all her lady organs. I reasoned that a pig's organs included the lungs, heart, and liver. So if Miss Cullinan was walking around without those essentials, it explained why she drank alcohol out of unmarked bottles. She was keeping herself embalmed. When I spoke to Bailey about it, that's her brother, he agreed that I was right, but he also informed me that Mr. Cullinan had 2 daughters by a colored lady and that I knew them very well. He added that the girls were the spitting image of their father. I was unable to remember what he looked like, although I had just left him a few hours before. But I thought of the Coleman girls. They were very light-skinned and certainly didn't look very much like their mother. My pity for Miss Cullinan preceded me that the next morning, like the Cheshire Cat smile. Those girls who could have been her daughters were beautiful. They didn't have to straighten their hair. Even when they were caught in the rain, their braids still hung down straight like tame snakes. Their mouths were pouty little cupid bows. Miss Cullinan didn't know what she missed, or maybe she did. For weeks after I arrived early, left late, and tried very hard to make up for her barrenness. If she had had her own children, she wouldn't have had to ask me to run 1,000 errands from her back door to the back door of her friends. Poor old Mrs. Cullinan. Then one evening, Miss Glory told me to serve the ladies on the porch. After I set the tray down and turned towards the kitchen, one of the women asked, "What's your name, girl?" It was the speckled-faced one. Miss Cullinan said, "She doesn't talk much. Her name is Margaret." Maya Angelou, her name is actually Marguerite, but these ladies called her Margaret. And her name's about to change again. Is she dumb? No, as I understand it, she can talk when she wants to, but she's usually quiet as a little mouse. Aren't you, Margaret? I'm going to insert here that Maya Angelou, she actually was raped at 8 years old and afterwards did not speak for years, hardly at all. Maybe like short answers, but she didn't do much talking at all. So that's one of the reasons that she was so quiet. I smiled at her. Poor thing, no organs and couldn't even pronounce my name correctly. She's a sweet little thing though. Well, that may be, but the name is too long. I would never bother myself. I'd call her Mary if I was you. I fumed into the kitchen. That horrible woman would never have a chance to call me Mary, because if I was starving, I would never work for her. I decided I wouldn't pee on her if her heart was on fire. Giggles drifted in off the porch and into Miss Glory's pots. I wondered what they could be laughing about. White folks were so strange. Could they be talking about me? Everybody knew that they stuck together better than Negroes did. It was possible that Miss Cullinan had friends in St. Louis, had heard about a girl from Stamps being in court and wrote to tell her. Maybe she knew about Mr. Freeman. I think she's talking about her rape right there. wondering if they knew about what happened to her. My lunch was in my mouth a second time. I think she's like about to throw up. I went outside and relieved myself on the bed of 4 o'clocks, which are flowers. Miss Glory thought I might be coming down with something and told me to go home, that Mama would give me some herb tea and she'd explain to her mistress. I realized how foolish I was being before I reached the pond. Of course, Miss Cullinan didn't know about the rape. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given me the 2 nice dresses that Mama cut down, and she certainly wouldn't have called me a sweet little thing. My stomach felt fine, and I didn't mention anything to Mama. That evening, I decided to write a poem on being white, fat, old, and without children. It was going to be a tragic ballad. I would have to watch her carefully to capture the essence of her loneliness and her pain. But the very next day, she called me by the wrong name. Miss Glory and I were washing up the lunch dishes when Mrs. Cullinan came to the doorway. "Mary?" Miss Glory asked. "Who?" Miss Cullinan, sagging a little, knew, and I knew. "I want Mary to go down to Mrs. Randall's and take her some soup. She's not been feeling well for a few days." Miss Glory's face was a wonder to see. "You mean Margaret, ma'am. Her name is Margaret." "That's too long. She's Mary from now on. Heat that soup from last night and put it in the china tureen. And Mary, I want you to carry it carefully." Every person I knew had a hellish horror of being called out of his name. It was a dangerous practice to call a Negro anything that could be loosely construed as insulting because of the centuries of having there been called niggers, jigs, dings, blackbirds, crows, boots, and spooks. Miss Glory had a fleeting second of feeling sorry for me. Then as she handed me the hot tureen, she said, "Don't mind. Don't pay that no mind. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words, you know, I've been working here for 20 years. She held the back door open for me. 20 years. I wasn't much older than you. My name used to be Hallelujah. That's what Ma named me. But my mistress gave me Glory, and it stuck. I likes it better too." For a few seconds, it was a toss-up over whether I would laugh. Imagine being named Hallelujah, or cry. Imagine letting some white woman rename you for her convenience. My anger saved me from either outburst. I had to quit the job, but the problem was going to be how to do it. Mama wouldn't allow me to quit for just any reason. "She's a peach. That woman is a real peach," Miss Randall's maid was talking as she took the soup from me, and I wondered what her name used to be and what she answered to now. For a week I looked into Miss Cullinan's face as she called me Mary. She ignored my coming late and leaving early. Miss Glory was a little annoyed because I had begun to leave egg yolk on the dishes and wasn't putting much heart in polishing the silver. I hoped that she wouldn't complain to our boss, but she didn't. She hoped that she would complain to the boss, but she didn't. Then Bailey, her brother, solved my dilemma. He had me describe the contents of the cupboard and the particular plates she liked best. Her favorite piece was a casserole shaped like a fish and the green glass coffee cups. I kept his instructions in mind, and so on the next day, when Miss Glory was hanging out clothes, I had again been told to serve the old biddies on the porch. I dropped the empty serving tray. When I heard Miss Cullinan scream, "Mary!" I picked up the casserole and 2 of the green glass cups in readiness. As she rounded the kitchen door, I let them fall on the tile floor. I could never absolutely describe to Bailey what happened next, because each time I got to the part where she fell on the floor, screwed up her ugly face to cry, we burst out laughing. She actually wobbled around on the floor and picked up shards of the cups and cried, "Oh, Mama, oh, dear God, it's Mama's china from Virginia. Oh, Mama, I'm so sorry." Miss Glory came running in from the yard, and the women from the porch crowded around. Miss Glory was almost as broken up as her mistress. "You mean to say she broke our Virginia dishes? What are we going to do?" Miss Cullinan cried louder. "That clumsy nigger, clumsy little black nigger." Old Speckled Face leaned down and asked, "Who did it, Viola? Was it Mary? Who did it?" Everything was happening so fast, I can't remember whether her action preceded her words, but I know that Miss Cullinan said, "Her name's Margaret, goddammit, her name's Margaret." And she threw a wedge of the broken plate at me. It could have been the hysteria which put her aim off, but the flying crockery caught Miss Glory right over the ear and she started screaming. I left the front door wide open so all the neighbors could hear. Miss Cullinan was right about one thing. My name wasn't Mary. I love this chapter. I feel like, to me, this chapter is fascinating because Maya Angelou, she's already experienced abandonment by her parents and rape, and she's only 10. And here she is at 10 years old, working in this rich white lady's house, and you can tell she's just like already sort of bitter about it. And it's so funny, like to me it's so fascinating to be inside her head as a 10-year-old as she's like just her vision of how she sees everybody. And I feel like I really like her, I really love her spirit, and her, what is it? It's sort of like this strong-willed rebellion that she's not gonna let somebody else tell her who she is or rename her. She's like, no, that is my name, and you, of all people, do not get to decide my name. And I guess I really like this chapter because it made me imagine, like, if you put yourself in her shoes, like, what would you do? Would you feel the same way? And I was like, honestly, I know I would. That, okay, like, I'm white. And so to imagine myself in this position is a whole lot different probably than someone who is African American reading this chapter. Somebody who's African American could probably read this and, like, I imagine the fury they would feel imagining themselves as Maya Angelou is probably even more intense than what I could ever imagine. But I still tried. It'd be a feeling of like, you have crossed a line. Like, that is like, you have crossed over into my world and are trying to take something from me that you're not allowed to take. Like, so I know myself and my, like, the rebellious part of me. Like, was it right or wrong for her to break those dishes? I don't know. Was it right or wrong for that lady to tell her she couldn't have her name? That her name was inconvenient for her and she was going to give her a different one? Like, it's very, I know, like, I can feel the satisfaction of that moment where she dropped that dish and that woman no longer even wanted her to work for her. Like, that was how she got her freedom and her respect. I feel like it's a very interesting thing trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. It's like how, like, to great lengths you have to go to imagine what it would be like to feel what she was feeling. I guess, how would you feel about somebody who looked down on you changing your name and calling you what they wanted to call you instead of respecting what your name is? I guess we're going to just wrap this up with how important is a name to you? How important is your name to you? How would you feel if someone else tried to change it? How would you feel if someone tried to take it away and give you a name like theirs? I don't know. But that's all for now. We're going to stop there. I hope everybody's having a great week. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.